So today I sit down with Johannis from Clearlight International. Now Clearlight are an infrared sauna company, however they're also tapping into the amazing benefits of red light therapy. And Johannis has an engineering background, so this meant I was able to go pretty deep into all things light therapy, not just infrared saunas, not just red light therapy, but combining the two. We cover topics such as the impact heat may have on therapeutic light therapy. We look at dosing, we look at the effect of water and light penetration, and much, much more. It is a really great conversation, and I'm sure you're going to get plenty from it. Now, before we do get into it, I do want to say I am affiliated with Clearlight. That means if you use the discount codes or the discount links below, you get a discount, but I also get a little cutback. And none of the content we talk about in this video is to be seen as medical advice. Please speak to your doctor before doing any light therapy protocols. We're going to talk about a few things, not only sauna, but also red light therapy and combining them. So firstly, thank you again, and looking forward to the chat.
Likewise.
How did you get into the space? Saunas, red light therapy, light? What's the backstory?
And funny, I think, we've been chatting for 2016 on and off, and I think what really connects us is New Zealand. My background is engineering, renewable engineering, born and raised in Germany. And then I did an internship, including a bachelor thesis and work experience in New Zealand. And that's essentially where I met Sebastian, also a German guy who moved to New Zealand, and he had been on the Longevity Now conferences in LA. That was in, 2010, 2008, when David Wolf was still a bit of a thing, a person to really look out for. And that's where we got to know Clearlight. Clearlight has been around for 20 years, 25 years now at this time. And they said, hey, I really think you guys should bring these amazing saunas to Australia and New Zealand. So literally in a garage, build a website, try to sell it. And I think back then, I was 23, I was kind of in the midst of writing my thesis. I was like, okay, I want to do something with health. I've always been health conscious. My grandma always joked that I would rather go to the greenhouse, make a salad as opposed to eating a cake. So,
right.
Then I ran a marathon, I played American football, and I kind of realized quite quickly that if I look after my body well through food or sunlight or exercise, I have more energy. It was very crystal clear even at a young age. And then thankfully to Sebastian, I got to know infrared saunas. I'd never heard of them before.
Yeah.
And I was kind of 23. I was looking, okay, well, this is a thing. Let's see, if it fails, you have a cool story to tell that you're wanted to sell infrared saunas when you're 23. So that's how it started. And now we're 10 years later, still active in New Zealand. I moved back to Germany. We're now sort of distributing Clearlight and other wellness products. We'll talk about that a bit later, in 7 countries. And very happy, been into podcasting and just really feel happy in the health and wellness space. But I think the engineering knowledge around frequencies, and we talk about wavelengths and intensities and, hertz, numbers. I do think that engineering background is helpful when it comes to talking some of the techie stuff.
100%. And I'm very keen to sort of tap into some of those technical knowledge bombs that I'm sure are lurking in that brain of yours. A question then. Let's share with the viewers the key difference between sauna, infrared sauna, and red light therapy. A lot of my viewers will be quite familiar with red light therapy. Maybe some, it's the first time you've watched this channel, if so, welcome. But can you give them a quick rundown in terms of why they're different, the different mechanisms of action from a health point of view?
Sure. I always like to start off in the sense that, one is heat therapy, one is light therapy. That's really my starting point. And yes, that might be oversimplified, but I think that's my passion, is to take a complex topic, break it down, and provide an easy way. And if you think about a sauna, it's been around for decades, for centuries, for thousands of years. The idea has always been you have hot air, or you somehow raise your core temperature. Your pulse goes up, you sweat as a consequence of the induced heat, essentially. And everything is about a cardiovascular response and detoxification. And you have different mechanisms. You could do a traditional Finnish sauna, you could do a steam sauna, or what we do, which is probably the newest type of sauna, is an infrared sauna, right? And infrared waves, infrared is part of the invisible light spectrum. So you're not actually seeing the red light from the red light therapy, but it's there. And it kind of feels like when you're lying in the sun over time, you get warm and you break a bit of a sweat. Imagine that feeling just in an infrared sauna all around you. You stay in longer, your core temperature goes up, and it can go up by 1.5 degrees, 1.6, 1.7 degrees. So actually inducing an artificial fever.
Yes.
Red light therapy, on the other hand, and there's a trend in Germany at the moment where, they call it cold red light therapy, because Germans are very much known to this red light lamp that you kind of put on your nasal system once you've blocked it here, and you kind of have a sinus infection or whatnot, and it kind of expands your blood vessels, and through that actually provides some relief. But red light therapy is rather cold, right? So it's like a light therapy. It combines visible red light therapy, which you see in the video. It's a very intense red color, and near infrared, which is partly visible but mostly invisible. When those two come together, our photoreceptors are being activated. They stimulate mitochondria. We get energy. Like, that's ultimately, in a very simplistic way, the way I try to explain red light therapy. Light,
Yes.
and infrared therapy or infrared saunas also using light,
Yes.
but more about that heat response to your body.
Yeah, because, and I know you said it's an oversimplification, but your far infrared or the infrared light, the infrared that you're using in a sauna is still light, right?
100%.
It's just it's a different spectrum, different wavelength.
Exactly.
But red light therapy, photobiomodulation, is also using infrared light. So can you explain the differences? Because I know some people are like, well, hold up, what are the lights that aren't working? And I say, well, it's infrared light. And then they'll ask, well, isn't that what's in the sauna? So how's that particular wavelength different?
Sure. I mean, there is a crossover. Like, at Clearlight, we sell primarily full spectrum saunas. What we mean by that is we combine the three types of infrared there exist.
Yes.
You have near infrared, which is the shortest but most intense wavelength. You have mid-infrared, it's a bit more gentle, it doesn't penetrate as deep. In your far infrared, which is the most gentle wavelength that doesn't penetrate very deep, and it's a very long and smooth wave. And that's the technicalities. You can read it up on Wikipedia. I'm sure you've written blogs about it. And when it comes to really raising the core temperature in a sauna, you kind of really want to have all three types of infrared combined, because they all actually work differently on a cellular level. Like the far infrared, because it doesn't penetrate very deep, it actually really affects the water molecules in the body. Essentially, it causes a slide of vibration, and through that, it raises the core temperature. Near infrared penetrates to the upper layers of the skin. It actually works much more on a deeper tissue muscular level. And I think, if you talk about heat therapy, you absolutely want to affect all three types of penetration from the skin to really make sure that the core temperature goes up. There's another effect, and that's called the so-called biofrequency. It's around 9.4 hertz, micrometers. And essentially, if you're not sure what infrared is, take your two hands, rub them together, hold them in front of you, and actually you feel that we as humans, we give off heat. And you can measure that frequency at 9.4 microns. So in physics, there's this theory that says it's a resonance frequency, meaning two frequencies with the same wavelength, they overlap, and actually the heat exchange is more powerful. That's why we, to a large proportion in our saunas, use far infrared. It's also been the most studied. It's been when the Japanese researchers actually identified it and built the first infrared saunas. It was in 1980. They used primarily far infrared.
Yes.
And now I think in more recent years, near infrared, middle infrared, full spectrum has actually come to the market, and I think it's absolutely valid. But I think when it comes to really inducing a fever, you really want to have the three types of infrared. Photobiomodulation is different. I think the research very clearly shows you need very, very specific wavelength. You need 6 to 660 nanometers red light, you need 8 to 860 nanometers near infrared, and you need quite high intensities in order to trigger the effect of photobiomodulation. So you don't really want other wavelengths in there. Sure, you can play around with that, but not for the compromise of ditching out the two essential wavelengths. And I think that's the fundamental difference, because it's almost like, I think Huberman said, it's red light therapy is one of the only ways to affect organs without surgery, because light is so powerful. And I've been talking too much, but I think you get the point. So
there's a lot I want to unpack here. So full spectrum saunas, let's talk about that briefly.
Yes.
Traditionally, correct me if I'm wrong, when infrared saunas started being introduced and sold to the consumer market, we were only seeing far infrared.
Yes.
Typically far infrared.
Yeah.
So now we're seeing this full spectrum. Is with your product range, is that an extra to get the full spectrum, or have you decided all of the saunas are going to be full spectrum by default? What's the situation there?
Look, I think the answer is that 10 years or 12 years ago, we only had far infrared saunas. And back in the days, there was a lot of ceramic heaters and very high output, which had a bit of a mid-infrared wavelength with it. but that's now shifted towards more carbon heaters because they provide a softer wavelength. So, and a lot of the international manufacturers, they still use far infrared to a large extent. So that's, I think, one of the answers to give you to that. What we've seen in the last 5 years is that full spectrum definitely adds more intensity to the sauna. People usually want the sauna hotter than they want it colder. And that's, I think, where the full spectrum really comes in, because typically full spectrum can either be generated via LEDs, but then it doesn't really have the same heat output.
Really?
Yeah. You can produce near infrared with LEDs, you can also produce full spectrum to some extent with it. But we use halogen heaters because they have a higher output. They're literally 500 watt heaters. So it's quite intense. And what we've seen probably in terms of sales statistics over the last 5 years is people definitely tend towards the full spectrum heater. So I'd probably say 80% of our sales are full spectrum, 20% are far infrared. And, in our far infrared saunas, you can add a full spectrum heater into it if you really wanted to. But I think it's also a question of intensity. Some people just don't want the sauna very hot. Maybe they can't tolerate it. Maybe they have a certain, disease genetically imposed. And that's why I think it really comes down to how you like to sauna.
So with a full spectrum sauna, are you getting any therapeutic near infrared light in it? Your 800s, 900s, 1,000 nanometer light.
You do?
You do.
But
much enough that...
I think that's, for the answer is yes, in the sense of making sure that the near infrared penetrates the skin. But the answer is no when you compare to the benefits of red light therapy.
Yes, okay.
Because you have these near infrared exposure from the front, and we actually have a color light therapy LED panel in the ceiling. Right. It's the same wavelengths from the red light, but one comes from the front, one comes from the top. The intensity is nowhere near enough.
Yes.
And therefore, you have the same wavelength, but it's not therapeutic from a red light therapy perspective.
Got it.
Yeah.
So then, if someone were to get a full spectrum sauna, they're obviously not going to get... There's no red in your full spectrum sauna, right? Where does it sort of start, wavelength-wise?
It starts around the 800.
Oh, 800.
Yeah. So that's when you look at the heater, you see some red color.
You can see.
So that's the near infrared.
Hey, so if you're enjoying this video, please be sure to hit the like button below and also subscribe while you're down there. If I get a lot of likes, it shows me that people are enjoying the interview content and I should do more of them. Also, I'm curious to know if you're enjoying the content on infrared saunas, not just red light therapy. Again, like, subscribe, and leave a comment as well. Okay, so if someone wants to get a sauna, they want to get a full spectrum sauna from you, but they also want to tap into the benefits of red light therapy, what are the options? And I know this is a bit of a silly question because I know the answer, but because the answer is right. Yeah,
sure.
But how does it work? I mean, what exactly is the customer going to get? And how does it work practically? Are you literally using this inside the sauna, or is it something that goes outside?
To answer your question, I think the first question you as a customer should ask yourself is do I want to combine the treatments or the protocols or the therapies or the tools, or do I want to keep it separate? There's some people that don't want to use red light while doing the sauna. Some might want to do red light in the morning and the sauna at night. Then I'd probably say, don't buy one for the sauna. So I think that's the honest answer without me trying to sell anything. What we try to do at Clearlight is we try to allow stacking of different health modalities. The vision has always been to create the best infrared sauna possible in the market. And, we can talk about that at some point, like EMF, ELF, lifetime warranty, etc. But then also maximizing the value for the customer whilst he or she's in the sauna. Yep. Because, let's face it, it feels like we all have less time every year. Whether that's true or not is another question. But I'm a big fan of, allowing different health modalities at the same time. And therefore, we have a sound therapy, we have an aroma unit that you can bring in the sauna, and we have a red light therapy that you can actually bring in the sauna. The idea has always been, if you have an hour per day to yourself, great, go in the sauna, use the red light therapy at the same time, maybe use the salt therapy at the same time, read a book at the same time. By the time you've come out, you've done X, Y, Z, at the same time. And that's been the idea of this red light therapy unit. As you can see, it's long, it's fairly narrow, So, it doesn't do, it's not a full body panel. Let's be really honest. Like if you have a red light therapy bed or two full body panels, it'll give you better results. Absolutely, because you have more skin exposure. But, for actually adding it into the sauna and sitting in front of it, you get your face, your thyroid, or your upper body covered, and you can adjust the height in the sauna. So, to come back to how it works is, you sit in the sauna, you put it on, and we have two bowls attached to the glass door. You can unscrew those. There's an attachment system, and then you can hang the red light therapy in the door. There's an extra plug in the floor that you can activate. And then you can use it, you don't have to use it, right? So when you turn on the sauna, it's up to you whether you want to switch on the red light therapy or not. So you may want to do that, you may not want to do that, but it allows you to do all this stuff whilst you're in the sauna at the same time. And I think that is truly unique in the market.
I'm curious, you said it's up to the customer whether they decide to use this in the sauna or like in a sauna session, or maybe they use it elsewhere, like in the morning, and decide to get a different type of product. What are your thoughts on that? Like, do you think it's better? Forget about the efficiency time, like time savers point of view. From a results point of view, do you think it is better, worse, and different combining photobiomodulation, red light therapy with your heat sauna protocol?
Look, I think if we talk about the best of the best, I'd split it.
Yes.
Like, just because, it's the same with sunlight. Like, it's not enough. It's not enough if you want to work in a vitamin D level to have your face and your hands in the sun. You need to be naked.
Yes,
and that's how light works. It's also true for infrared saunas. If you just have two heaters on your spine and one in the front, well, what happens to all your other parts of the body? Like, they're going to miss out on that. And it's the same with red light therapy. Like, you ideally, if you're really serious about red light therapy, you want to have a full body stack at home, I believe. But is it a good enough effort, I think, to start? And especially if people don't have the space?
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think it's brilliant that you have the flexibility to do that. And, you can see at the moment we don't have it in the sauna. There's an external stand. So, you could use it in the sauna. And if you want to do it while you meditate or while you journal, get it outside the sauna, hang it on the stand, and use it on your upper body. Like, I think it's great for that. But if you were talking like biohacking, health nut, the best of the best, full body panel is the way to go. Ideally too, for the front and the back body.
Correct. Yeah. So what are your thoughts on water and red light therapy? So you're in a sauna, you're starting to sweat.
Yep.
Have you looked? It's funny because literally an hour ago, Bart was telling me that maybe my understanding was a little bit incorrect and I need to take a deeper dive on this. But what's your take on using this while I'm covered in sweat? Are we losing a lot of that light reflected off? Is it still going to penetrate that water? Do you know much about this? Have you taken a dive into this topic?
I mean, I haven't taken a deep dive. Like, I'd love to see some studies. I think it's really hard to quantify the effects of that. But if we looked at it from a engineering or common sense perspective, anything in between your photoreceptors and the light source is blocking it to some extent. If I wear a t-shirt, it'll block a lot. If I put glass in between, it'll also block some. And I don't think, because sweat it might increase the reflection rate. We always have emissivity, and emissivity speaks about the absorption, or it speaks also about the reflection. If we have a dark surface, it absorbs heat a lot better. If we have a white surface, it reflects it. Sweat itself is obviously like a silver. It almost looks, we were shiny, right? And sweat is not just water. It's also minerals, it's salt, it's potentially some toxins that we're getting out. And I do think that they, to some extent, provide a little bit of a blockage. But my feeling is we're talking maybe 5%.
Right, okay.
And I think you could easily compensate that by the fact that you're in a sauna for at least 20 to 40 minutes.
That's a good point.
Whereas in a red light, if the intensity is right, you may do 10, 12, 15 minutes.
Yeah, good point.
So.
And I guess another factor is you don't get into a sauna and start sweating immediately. You may have 5-10 minutes.
I reckon the best protocol is, maybe do if you can somehow squeeze in cold therapy, I think that would be great. Like, you could do an ice bath in the morning.
Yeah.
Then you could do red light therapy because the colder the skin temperature, the more effective. And then you could use the sauna. Or as you said, like at the beginning of the sauna session, use it for 10, 15 minutes. It'll be a lot more effective as opposed to doing it towards the end. Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about this particular unit here.
Yep.
Is it 660 and 850?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
It's kind of the well-researched, spectrum.
And is this the only product? Can you get smaller ones, taller ones, wider ones that you sell?
Yeah, so we have to talk about the use case. Like, and for some that have not looked into red light therapy, red light therapy products use LEDs. LEDs, say light emitting diodes. Technically, if they run for a long time, they need to be cooled, especially if the intensity is long, which is why on most panels you see fans in the background. Now, the difference is you use it in the sauna. The sauna has temperatures of up to 60, 70, maybe 80 degrees in a commercial space. There's no way a extended red light therapy device would survive that long in a sauna. The fans would fail, the LEDs would fail. And I don't know if you've ever opened one, I'm sure you have. It's almost impossible to swap these LEDs. Like it's really challenging because everything's kind of bolted in. And that was a challenge, right? Like, you needed a red light therapy that could withstand temperatures over an extended time. And therefore the casing is different. There's more fan power in there. The device is a little bit louder. I want to be really honest. Like the device is louder because it has more fan power. And that was the challenge to really come up with a design that can withstand the heat. It's a 5-year warranty. As you guys know, most of the red light therapy devices on the market do 2, maybe 3, maybe the really good brands do 5 years.
Yeah.
And this is under excessive heat. It gives a 5-year warranty. You can use it inside and outside the sauna, but it also has a higher purchase price for exactly that reason. We use different materials. We're produced in the USA, which is, I think, also a sign of quality. And it uses, good intensities, a number of LEDs. Sure, it's not a full body panel, but I think it's a bloody brilliant panel to bring it into the sauna.
So this is the only one you sell?
Yes. For inside the sauna use, we do. I think in the USA, they have some standalone ones. And we're launching our standalone red light therapy panels for normal day-to-day use outside of the sauna.
So that'll be your own?
Yes, it'll be separate to the Clearlight product.
Yes, okay.
But the brand will be called Helsi, and we're looking at launching in January 2024.
Okay, cool. Let's unpack this. So what do you can you reveal anything yet in terms of product lines, unique specs?
I mean, look, it was actually during the pandemic. I think the pandemic has been a challenge for everyone, like for good because demand was skyrocketing, for bad because the supply chain was a nightmare. We couldn't get the products in. We had a lot of red lights. A lot of people bought them for inside the sauna because they wanted to upgrade their house or upgrade their wellness experience. But then we had people saying, like, actually, I don't want to use it in the sauna. I find it impractical, and that's why I said, like, there's no right or wrong. Like, it really comes down to your preferences, and that's essentially. Then we ordered red light panels from 10, 50 manufacturers. Did our internal assessment. I should have probably watched yours back then. I didn't know about it. And we found a manufacturer that we're very happy with. Extremely good quality, extremely good warranty, extremely high intensity. And we came up with our own design. We've actually had this brand launch planned for probably 2+ years. But look, stuff comes in between, doesn't happen. But it's been a long time in the making. And from what I know and from what I've seen, it's probably one of the most intense in terms of intensity per square centimeter or millimeter. Red light therapies panels on the market. It's an above average warranty. We're looking at some integration when it comes to maybe using it also as an alarm system, natural light and gradually waking you up throughout the day. We thought about a commercial use. Like I think we have a lot of commercial partners from franchise partners, cryo chains, wellness, day spas that say, look, I just want to have a better control. Like I don't want to walk in the booth, turn it on or off. So there's a little bit of that smartness when the IoT space coming in. That's probably what I can share for the time being. Yeah.
That's cool. So just to clarify, it's a different brand manufacturer to this particular panel. Okay, cool. Is it? Can I ask? Are you going to have small ones, large ones?
We'll have full body panels. We'll have portable ones. Yeah. But we'll maintain this one because it's brilliant for the sauna. Quality is great. Intensity 100%. Is good, and it's people love it. Yeah.
I've got a question then. With you mentioned these new panels are going to have quite a high power intensity.
Yes.
I know from the marketing point of view, great. Have you looked into this? Do you think we're getting to a point with these panels where we're getting too powerful from a healing therapeutic point of view? I'm sure you've looked into the biphasic dose response.
Yes.
I don't know if you've seen some of the animal studies. In fact, they may have even been in vitro studies where they kept the dosage from a joules point of view equal, but played around with intensity and time duration, and the results were not consistent. It's a topic that I am still trying to figure out. So I don't know. Yeah. So what are your thoughts? Have you looked into this much?
Look, I know about it. I've spoken with Bart. I've read part of your video, watched part of your videos, and read part of your blogs on this topic. And I think what's the guy's name of Novothor?
James Carroll.
Yeah, I've obviously read some of his publications, and I agree. I think we tend to think in life that more is better. It's not always the true case. I think therefore, the short answer is you'll be able to adjust the intensities as per your requirements, and I hope in the meantime we'll have some really solid user instructions. A topic that I'm really passionate about is to somehow quantify this whole thing, quantify ice bath, quantify an infrared sauna, and in the sense of what actually happens if you do it in the morning, what happens if you do it at nighttime, what happens if you had a bit of sleep, what happens if you had alcohol, what actually happens if what happens in summer versus winter.
Right.
And I think there's a lot to be learned in this whole wellness space. And I know we had a chat about this yesterday. It's a bloody wild west at the moment.
Yeah, I understand.
I've had companies, not just infrared sauna companies that, but also red light therapy panels companies that say, look, it helps with vitamin D production. It's so fundamentally wrong. But, there's no authority and organization who currently controls that. And there's a lot of mismarketing, a lot of misleading. And I think it's not just with red light therapy or with saunas.
Yeah.
It's everywhere. Detox creams. You're like, what does that even mean? And I think therefore I 100% agree with you. There's work to be done.
Mm-hmm.
And I tend to agree that more is not always better.
Mm.
But I would hope that if we educate with guides, but potentially also describing how should you actually feel after a red light therapy session, as opposed to saying, just do 20 minutes and you'll be all right doing that, mate. That might not work for someone that is photosensitive.
Totally.
And I think that's a consumer education piece comes in. And I think also having a very valid user return policy is important because it's not for everyone. It's not just for making money.
Yeah, it's a good answer. And it's so complex. It's so tricky because, I really wish it was clear and we could just simply say, look, just 10 minutes or 5 minutes or this distance. And there are so many variables. You mentioned a bunch of them in times of the day, like skin tone is another one, distance from panels. It's endless. And I wish it wasn't. I really wish you could just say, this many joules, do a brief calculation, away you go. I also think with the intensity, if you're wanting, it depends what you're trying to treat, right? Like if you're just talking surface level wound or some sunburn, for instance, maybe a low intensity is all you need. But if you're talking fractured femur, especially if like a dude with a bit of muscle on his legs, maybe you want that extreme intensity just to help with penetration.
I agree.
I'm sure you may be overloading the skin and there may potentially be downsides there. You may get a bit of a rash or a stress response that's not ideal, but at least you're getting those photons there. But, and I think that's another thing that people don't think about, right? Like, how can you say it's too much if that is the goal, to treat the bone marrow, for instance? I agree. There's so many variables.
Super complex. And I think that's, fortunately, you can overdo red light, but I think it's not as severe as when you overdo an ice bath. The health consequences or sauna.
Or some crazy supplement.
Yes, you might have a skin rash, sure, and maybe you're just feeling a bit, because, it is stress for the body. You might actually feel fatigued if you've overdone it. I've read that a few times, but it's, then it comes down to the consciousness of, hey, what have I actually done yesterday?
Yes.
Maybe I should have not drank the bottle of wine. I'm kidding. But no, maybe I should have only done 10 minutes opposed to 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And next time I'll try that. And anyway,
complex. I love that because that's exactly what I say as well. Like, start with a protocol. Maybe it's 5 minutes a day, 4 times a week, 6 inches from the pedal, right? Just do it for a few days.
And gradually build up.
And just see how you feel. And we're at the Biohacker Summit right now. So I'd like to think that people here are quite in tune with their body. And, hopefully, but anyone who is serious about their health, create a log, wearable that's tracking your HRV, quantify it if you can. You talked about it earlier. And at least an experiment, because we don't know yet. I mean, it's different if you're talking medical use.
Yes.
You know, like for the brain, for instance, or surgery or oral, some of the oral techniques, protocols they're using. Yeah, there is a lot of research on that targeted treatment. But when you're talking full body systemic benefits, you really just have to benefit. Experiment, see the benefits, and adjust. If you found a good result, double it. You double the dosage, see what happens.
Exactly.
Do you double the benefits? Or maybe all of a sudden you start feeling worse, in which case, go back.
Yes.
It's funny though, thinking about this, I'm like, maybe I should do an experiment one day where I
love that.
Where I have my full panel and sit there for like 3 hours.
And just go all the way, hey? Yeah.
Having first aid care today. Defibrillator, ready.
Panic button.
Panic button, then we can. I'll just call in. I'll do it in the city one day. It is like an ambulance close by. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe that'd be kind of neat.
Yeah.
But I really like those answers, and I like the honesty there. The fact that you're saying, we don't really know. Whereas some other companies may just be like, look, we've done this, and it's the best. Full stop. And I think also the fact that you can lower the intensity. Some people call it a marketing ad, but I disagree, because what happens if you want to do a 45-minute meditation session? You don't want it at max capacity.
I agree.
For 45 minutes. You want to lower it down. What happens if you are seriously unwell and you only want to do little bursts? You can drop it down and do a minute or two. It gives you options, right?
Yes.
Even though 80-90% of people may never use it, at least it's there.
Yeah.
So I like that. Well, we'll definitely have to stay in touch in terms of when it comes to launching those products.
Yes.
Before we wrap up, though, you mentioned earlier, I want to circle back to the saunas. You mentioned that you believe you're building the best saunas available on the market. What are you doing? What's unique about yours? Why is it better than the rest? Why are they better than the rest?
Look, I could now probably throw all these biohackers in that space who use our saunas, but I think, if you are looking at buying an infrared sauna, what do you want? You want ease of mind, you want quality materials, and I think you really want therapeutic design and therapeutic results. And I think, but that might not work for everyone, but that's kind of what we try to do. So I think it comes really with the service promise. The service promise is a lifetime warranty.
Really?
It's lifetime. It's always been a lifetime. It's 5 years for commercial.
Yeah.
And I genuinely believe we're probably the only company who really offers a true lifetime warranty. There's some that say it's a lifetime warranty, but then it's 7 years. Or there's some that's lifetime warranty, but then when you look close, it's only the heaters.
Right.
And sure, we exclude labor from, I think, 5 years onwards, but the parts will always be inclusive. It always has been. So that's that. The second one is EMF and ELF. I think for those that don't know what that means, it's electromagnetic frequencies. It's extremely low frequencies. And obviously, whenever an electrical current runs from A to B, you have these fields, and they have an effect on our body. For some of that is new to this topic. I'm sure you would agree that sleeping on a Wi-Fi router is not something you actually want to do. And I really get it. It makes sense, right? So, I've measured our closest competitor yesterday. The levels are, 10, 15 times higher in their saunas than in ours. And we're talking EMF measured in milligauss and ELF measured in volts per meter, right? So if you have those fields, and it's particularly challenging in infrared saunas, because ideally in a really good infrared sauna, you have a 360-degree heat exposure. Same, we talk about light. There's no point in having a spine heater and one on the front. What happens to all your other parts of the body? That's how light works. And then only up to shoulder height, because you don't want to heat the head. There's no point in that. There's hardly any water in the head anyway, and it causes stress. So that's another point. I think all these different wellness add-ons and stacking of therapies, I think it's great. It's eco-certified woods on the inside. We use non-toxic glues. You find us in clinics. Ben Greenfield recommends us. So there's a lot of trust, I think, in that market. But to me, it boils down to great heater technology. I talked about that, but we patented our own heater technology, EMF, ELF, lifetime warranty, and great materials. And sure, then you can talk design. Some like this style better than others. Some want to lie down, although that's technically not recommendable in an infrared sauna. Others, want to have a fancy digital touch keypad, which actually increases your ELF exponentially.
Right.
What's the point if you want to detox and de-stress and you have one of these fancy iPads that allows you to watch Netflix? Yes, I get it. It's good for marketing. Looks good. But if you're really talking health, get rid of it.
Yeah.
And I think that's really what we're trying to do. We're trying to be honest with the warranty, with the consumer protection. There's no bitching of competition, which there unfortunately is a lot, not just in the saunas, in the red light space equally.
Yeah.
And that's what we try to do. And do we get everything right? No. But we're trying, and I try to listen to feedback. We make improvements, and that's what we thrive for. Yeah.
Excellent. Is there anything else you'd like to add when it comes to infrared saunas, red light therapy, combination of the two?
Look, I mean, I'm a big fan of traditional saunas too. Like there's this constant debate about are infrared saunas real saunas or not, and I'm personally tired of it. And I mean, there's a lot of Finnish people in there say it's a sauna. This is not a sauna. It's what is this even? But if it comes down to actually, can you sweat more often and can you detoxify more often during the week using an infrared sauna versus maybe doing a traditional sauna once a week?
Yeah.
I think this is far superior. And I would really, I know there's some skeptics that really say infrared saunas don't actually support heat shock proteins. I think that's now been proven that that's incorrect. And I would probably even challenge people in the sense that I think if you stay in because you stay in an infrared sauna longer than a traditional, your core temperature goes up higher. You develop a stronger fever. But a traditional sauna is a great ritual, great for heat shock proteins, but you can't use red light therapy in there. So again, not right or wrong, comes to your preference, but I genuinely think what we've seen from sauna studies, the more often we use a sauna during the week, the more healthy we get.
Right.
And I sure that was done on a Finnish sauna, but I think it's a valid point because whenever we jump into the sauna and we work on the relaxation and we activate the parasympathetic nervous system, it's beneficial.
Yeah.
And I think using an infrared sauna, red light, to me, it's a great tool. Doesn't work for everyone, but I think it's a really powerful tool if you're able to combine it at a cheap rate because it hardly consumes electricity and has very short preheating times.
Yeah, and another thing I'll mention on the difference there is the convenience, the fact that you can set it up in a bedroom, in a home, like in a garage. You don't need ventilation. You don't
no mold.
Exactly. Special wiring with a standard size one at least. Time to heat up. And that's a big one for me. And we talked about this yesterday. I actually prefer quite a small sauna, even though I'm a little bit cramped in it, because I can turn it on and 5-10 minutes later we're good to go. So I mean, saying that, I love a traditional sauna.
Same here.
The smell and everything.
I had it this morning. I had it yesterday.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, there's something to it. But on a day-to-day basis, a routine basis, consumer level basis, I mean, infrared sauna ticks a lot of the boxes.
It's super practical. Yeah,
we'll keep the traditional ones for when we're traveling, and you got one in the hotel. Very good. Where can people learn more about your company, the saunas, the new red light therapy panels, if there's a website or a launch page or anything like that, and also yourself? Feel free to share the details.
Yeah, thanks, so we got a podcast actually. Hopefully we'll get you on at some point. It's called The Sauna Show. On YouTube, on Instagram, we'll soon rebrand it to The Helsi Show, Helsi. It was actually made up because Germans struggle with the TH, so sometimes when they want to say healthy, they say healthy. So that was a bit of a fun joke that we actually came up with that. Look, we represent Clearlight in Europe, Australia, New Zealand. So if you just type in Clearlight Saunas, country where you're at, Europe, Australia, New Zealand, you'll find us. You'll find myself on LinkedIn, Instagram, Johannes Kettelhodt. I'm probably more active on LinkedIn than I am on Instagram. Look, reach out, comment on the YouTubes. Like I'll probably read the comments and I'll be able to jump in and look. Let's spread the knowledge. Like I think the market is big enough. There's so much to learn. I think we've hardly understood red light therapy with the doses. Same with infrared saunas, and it's a great edutainment piece to come. So, yeah,
Johannes, thank you very, very much.
Thanks,
I appreciate it, and I'll let you get back to work and do some. What are you doing down there? Are you selling at the moment?
I'm just sitting in the sauna. No,
oh, really?
Yeah, so look, it's trying to line up people for the podcast, partnerships. We have an infrared sauna here, but logistically it's always a nightmare. So we're very fortunate to have sold it. So tonight we just have to pack it together, and someone else is going to take it and probably hop in the sauna tonight. So
and for anyone that has never been to one of these events, biohacking, health optimization, wellness, like highly recommend it. I mean, you don't even I come to these events and I very rarely see the presentations because there's so many cool people on the floor, so many products, and the networking, the opportunities, conversations you have. It's so good. So I highly recommend it. I will put links to everything we mentioned, all of your LinkedIn, your Instagram. I'll put all of those below. But if you have any questions for myself or Johannes, leave them below as well, and one of us will get back to you. And that is a wrap. If you enjoyed this, let me know by leaving a like or a comment down below. Otherwise, check out this playlist up here. It is my playlist with all my recent interviews with other red light therapy experts and company founders.